Going now. Oh. Yes. Alright, we're gonna do this little thing here. Just want to show some. It's very loud, isn't it? Alright, come on.
Announcer! Oi! Oi! What we got here? Audience. Snolly's got your raw dog and live interaction chat. Tape before us. Your jury! Announcer. And who is this one? Audience. The accused. The one we cannot lay our eyes on. Booming voice. Very wise. Trevor Goodchild, with the help of a spring mechanism and a sleek feathered jumpsuit, leaps from a hole just beyond the stage and lands, towering over the accused. Trevor Goodchild, pointing straight at you. Are you ready to play? Thundering applause. Aeon Flux. Episode the game showed to prison pipeline. Trevor Goodchild. Before I relayed the rules of this summer enacting of the rule of law. A moment of silence for Snolly. And now raise a terrifying din to the terrorist cell that snuffed him, distributed him in bags. The very same bags which we had hung behind you in remembrance this whole season. It stench a reminder of the foul poopy thoughts our enemy would like us to entertain. But we won't let them, will we? Cries for Snolly. Tonight for the season finale, our staff behind the scenes is cooking for you a most fitting meal that should hold you all over through the coming storm. Wait, I should have said that separately so that you don't conflate the two meats, because look up, there's Snolly still totally not being cooked in our kitchen. That's an animal we have there. Snolly is just festering up above you all, minding the biz. Citizens, look under your seats. The audience finds under their seats enough food to last the last of the winter. Hoots and cheers, and 5 minutes of eating with abandon. Okay, that's enough. Goodchild pulls the 7th lever on his universal remote. Then a siren to get back to their seats for the second act. Trevor Goodchild, welcome back. Welcome home, fair citizens and fellow justice involved. And now for what makes this game fun. Our Mr. Rule of Law will tell us the guidelines for discerning guilt from innocence for today. Mr. Rule of Law, step right up here and recombinate from your data of previous decisions informed by the numbers ascribed to the gusts of wind blowing over our meteorological sensors. Give us your quantumly generated regulations for today's justice involvement. To a Johnny tune if possible. It's been a grim day, Mr. Rule of Law.
Number 1. The proceedings may only begin after the accused correctly hums the 7-second tune designated as the chord of commencement. The tune is changed daily at random. There is no official record of the tune. Number two, all pieces of physical evidence are to be considered equal in value, relevance, and weight. Whether that evidence is a blood-stained knife, a signed confession, or a particularly interesting leaf found near the scene. Number three, the defense must be argued by the accused's chief accuser, who is compelled to present the strongest possible case for acquittal. Failure to do so will result in the accuser receiving the same punishment as the accused. Number 4, witness testimony shall be considered invalid if the witness experienced the event in question with more than 3 of their 5 senses. Scribbling is heard, an amendment has been made, any smells are automatically dismissed. Number five, all citizens and officials within a 2,000 km radius must attempt by any means necessary to maintain the physical safety and anonymity of the accused until such time as a non-unanimous verdict is reached. Number six, a unanimous verdict must be comprised of both guilty and not guilty votes. Number six, part two, any tie is ruled as execution. Number seven, appeals may only be filed in the form of a public sculpture to be erected overnight by the appealing party. The court will issue its appellate ruling by either sanctioning the sculpture's demolition or declaring it a protected landmark. Number eight, any evidence given by any party is void if that evidence is or would be self-incriminating. Number nine, at any random point during the trial, a 2-minute objection-free yelling period will be announced. Anyone present in the court may yell anything they wish without fear of contempt charges. The court stenographer must accurately record all yelling. Number 10, should any party become too compelling, logical, or coherent in their argumentation, they will be replaced by a small, anxious mammal of the court's choosing to complete the remainder of their legal duty.
Trevor Goodchild. Nice. Jaunty. You know, you could have treated us with something more. Never mind. You'll get what you sang for. Don't worry. It'll be fair or at least proportionate. Trevor Goodchild. All right. We have some legal stuff to do. Let's begin.
Smooth transition.
Audience marinating in summer reflection. Trevor Goodchild.
Oh God.
Nice. Jaunty. You know, you could have treated us with something more. Never mind. You'll get what you sang for. Don't worry. It'll be fair or at least proportionate. Trevor Goodchild. All right. We have some legal stuff to do. Let's begin. You will now be presented with the Court of Commencements. Let's have a listen. The tune plays over the speakers. The audience watches your throat. Will you hum correctly? Will you die? It's up to you. This is Snolly's got your raw dogged live interaction chat. Audience, take before us your jury! Announcer, oi! What we got here? The accused can't even manage a simple tune. The tune plays again. A single, discordant note stretch, then another climbing up before plunging into a guttural thrum that vibrates through the floorboards. It's less a melody and more a feeling, like the last gasp of a dying machine. The camera zooms in on your face, capturing the faint sheen of sweat on your upper lip. The stadium lights are hot. You open your mouth and a hum emerges. It's close, so close. The audience holds its collective breath. But then your pitch wavers on the final, stomach churning thrum. You miss it by a hair's breadth. A loud, mournful klaxon sounds. Trevor Goodchild. Oh dear. Oh, that's a shame. Such a simple task. He sighs, a performance of profound disappointment. He turns to the audience, hands clasped behind his back. Trevor Goodchild, the rules are the rules, as the late, great Snolly almost once said. The proceedings may not begin. A gasp ripples through the crowd. Then a shout from the front row. Death! Death for the tone deaf. It's quickly taken up. Death! 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 Goodchild holds up a single, perfectly manicured hand. The chants die instantly. Trevor Goodchild. Now, let's not be hasty. While the strict letter of the law would call for immediate, public, and artistically rendered dismemberment, I am a merciful man. I believe in second chances. The spirit of Snolly was one of surprising cruelty, yes, but also spectacle, and a failure to commence as a bore. We can't have a boring finale. He walks to the edge of the stage, peering down at you. Trevor Goodchild. So, I shall invoke Article 11, subsection B, the Goodchild loophole. In the event of a failure to commence, the accused shall not be put to death. Instead, their tongue shall be recalibrated with fire. Two hulking stagehands, their faces obscured by porcelain masks of Snolly's serene, smiling face, emerge from the wings. They're carrying a device that looks like a branding iron attached to a car battery. It glows a faint, angry orange. Trevor Goodchild, don't worry, it's quite humane. We've had only a 20% fatality rate with this model. The rest of the subjects report a heightened appreciation for music. Now, open wide. We have a show to put on. Title: The Branding Iron, a grotesque parody of a dentist's tool, descended. The audience didn't flinch. They leaned in, their collective gaze of physical weight. There was no pain at first, just the scent of your own skin starting to cook, like bacon left on tool. Then the heat hit, a white hot spike that drove through your jaw and into the base of your skull. Your vision dissolved into a static of white and red. Your throat, even in silent agony, made a sound. A choked, guttural thing that was, by some cruel miracle, the exact, perfect pitch of the final note in the chord of commencements. The klaxon stopped. A new, triumphant fanfare blared. Trevor Goodchild. It worked. Well, citizens, a perfect note. The law is satisfied. The proceedings have officially commenced. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. The stagehands retreated, leaving you with the taste of burnt flesh and a tongue that felt 3 sizes too big. You could feel the blister rising, a taut, throbbing sphere filling your mouth. Goodchild clapped his hands together. Excellent. Now that the pleasantries are out of the way, let's get to the meat of the matter, the evidence. A conveyor belt descended from the ceiling, stopping before you. On it, a bizarre assortment of items began to parade past. First, a blood-stained knife, its ornate handle carved from what looked suspiciously like human bone. Next, a signed confession, written in elegant cursive on the stationery of a luxury hotel you'd never heard of. Then, nestled on a velvet cushion, a single brown autumn leaf, its edges crisped and curled. Trevor Goodchild. As per rule number 2, these are all equal. The knife, the confession, the leaf. Their value, relevance, and weight are identical. The burden is now on your accuser. Aha! Speak of the devil, and he shall appear in a tasteful yet intimidating uniform. The woman strode up from stage left. She was severe. Her uniform pressed with razor-sharp creases, her hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch the skin on her face. She held a laser pointer, which she aimed directly at your chest. This was your chief accuser. And per rule number 3, she was now your only hope. Trevor Goodchild, Prosecutor Avarice, you have the floor. And remember, you must argue for the accused's acquittal with all your might. The fate of Snolly, and perhaps your own, hangs in the balance. Fail to persuade us, and you'll be sharing a cell or a cooking pot with your former quarry. Prosecutor Avarice's jaw tightened. She was good at her job, but her job was usually the exact opposite of this. She stepped to the lectern, the laser pointer's red dot trembling slightly over your heart. Prosecutor Avarice, citizens of Bredna, honorable good child, I stand here today to argue passionately for the innocence of this specimen. She gestured vaguely in your direction, a flick of the wrist. Prosecutor Avarice, let's start with the so-called confession. Sign, yes. But look at the paper. Hotel stationery. Only a truly degenerate mind, a soul so steeped in luxury and self-absorption, would choose this medium for their final, life-altering declaration. Is that the profile we see here? She aimed the laser at your jumpsuit. The audience murmured. A fair point. You did not look like you belonged in a luxury hotel. Prosecutor Avarice. And the knife. So dramatic. So obvious. A true agent of chaos. A real professional would never leave such a cliche. They'd use poison. Or gravity. Or something elegant. This knife screams amateur hour. Look at the accused. Does this look like an amateur? The raw, simmering intelligence, the defiant set of the jaw. Even the blisters are perfectly formed. The audience nodded along. She was persuasive. Too persuasive. Trevor Goodchild held up a single finger. Stopping her, he turned to a small, anxious-looking badger in a tiny barrister's wig that was suddenly sitting on a miniature stool at the defense table. Trevor Goodchild, rule number 10. Counselor, you are becoming too coherent. Your logic is a threat to the solemn chaos of this proceeding. The law is the law. The badger, apparent to your new legal representation, chittered nervously and began industriously sniffing the lectern. Prosecutor Avarice stared, her face a mask of impotent fury. Trevor Goodchild. And now, rule number 4. Rule number 2 doesn't refer to a literal 3 props. I mean, all crimes don't contain those 3 things, right? This would mean anyone can be convicted with any evidence. Who wrote this rule? Your lawyer, the badger, simply began licking the velvet cushion the leaf rested on. A balding man with immense spectacles stands from the witness box. Witness hash 1. Sir, I saw the whole thing. I saw them do it. Trevor Goodchild. Citizens, silence for the witness. Mr. Goodlad, you may proceed. Goodlad leans into the microphone, breathless. Mr. Goodlad, it was a Tuesday, I think. Or maybe it smelled like Tuesday. The scent was burnt sugar and regret. I heard the door splinter. The metallic kind of fear in the air. The floor was vibrating with the struggle. And so the shadow of the accused mid-lunge. A gasp from the audience. 4 senses. Trevor Goodchild. 4 senses, you say. Mr. Goodlad. 4, Your Excellency. Trevor Goodchild. Let me see the amendment. As written, any testimony from an event experienced with more than 3 senses is invalid. And smells are automatically dismissed anyway. So that's 2 senses. Hearing and seeing, you're fine, Mr. Goodlad. But your testimony is worthless. Dismissed. And as per rule number 8, your attempt to bear witness has just self-incriminated you. You seem to know an awful lot about the crime scene. Guards! 2 more Snolly masked guards seize the spluttering Mr. Goodlad and drag him away. Trevor Goodchild. Anyone else? Anyone wish to bear witness? The crowd was suddenly very, very quiet. This is the point where a single, piercing siren cuts through the tension. Trevor Goodchild. Ha! Rule number 9. A 2-minute objection-free yelling period. Begin! The stadium erupted. Not in chaos, but in a bizarrely orchestrated cacophony. I forgot to feed my fish. Screamed a woman in the front row. The pants are too tight. Bellowed a large man 2 sections back. My left toe is plagued by doubts. Shrieked another. Then it began. As per rule number 5, a strange transformation rippled through the crowd. The screams changed. Protect the accused. Someone yelled. They're getting too close. Another shrieked, suddenly blocking the camera's view with their body. You yell incompetent cunt, good child. Kick governance out of a testicle sack. Worse than the monarchs. Revolt. A section of the audience immediately started chanting in response. Revolt. Revolt. They began to form a human shield around your seat, pushing back against the security staff trying to reach you. Others tried to obscure your face with goats and giant foam fingers emblazoned with "We Three Snolly." Trevor Goodchild watched this with a bemused smile, tapping his fingers on his lantern. When the 2 minutes were up, a soft chime played. The yelling stopped. The audience members who had been shielding you sat down as if nothing had happened, their faces blank. The revolution was over. Trevor Goodchild. Touching. Truly, the civic duty of our people is palpable. Now let's get back on track. As the accused's official counsel is currently foraging, we seem to be at an impasse. He strolled over to the conveyor belt, picking up the autumn leaf. He twirled it between his thumb and forefinger. Trevor Goodchild, the prosecution's argument for innocence was compelling. Too compelling. This badger, however, has made no argument at all. A classic legal maneuver. By being utterly useless, it casts no light on the matter, thereby not violating any rules. Genius. The badger looked up from its grooming and loud, please-sounding chirp. Trevor Goodchild. But a verdict must be reached. And a verdict, according to rule number 6, must be unanimous, comprised of both guilty and not guilty votes. He turned to face the audience, who now morphed seamlessly into their role as jury. Trevor Goodchild, you have all you need. A blood-stained knife, a confession on fancy paper, a leaf, an accuser who argued too well, a badger, the lingering scent of toasted tongue. Your civic duty is clear. On your seats, you will find a voting panel. Guilty. Not guilty. You must vote. You must reach a non-unanimous, unanimous verdict. A tie, of course, means execution. You have 1 minute. Begin. The stadium was filled with the frantic tapping of fingers on plastic screens. A giant counter appeared on the screen behind Goodchild, the numbers for guilty and not guilty flipping wildly, heading closer and closer. Title. The counter froze, deadlocked. 5 held votes for guilty. 5 held votes for not guilty. A tie. The arena, for a split second, was silent. Then the crowd erupted in the most bloodthirsty cheer yet. They began stamping their feet, a rhythmic, percussive demand for your execution. The joy in their faces was absolute. The pure, uncomplicated bliss of a crowd that has been promised a satisfyingly conclusive spectacle. Trevor Goodchild simply smiled, a picture of serene satisfaction. He raised a single, thin, metallic cylinder to his lips. It was not a microphone. "Citizens," he said, his voice amplified with an unnerving clarity that cut through the roaring, "you have performed your duty perfectly. A tie. As per the law, the sentence is execution." The roar intensified. People were hugging each other, tears of joy streaming down their faces. "So," Goodchild continued, lowering the cylinder, "let us move on to the second phase of tonight's proceedings, the execution. Unless, of course, the accused wishes to file an appeal." Every head in the stadium swiveled to look at you. You, sitting between your useless badger lawyer and a tray of equally useless props. Your mouth was a cavern of pain, your tongue a swollen, useless thing. An appeal. Trevor Goodchild saw your hesitation. He seemed to taste it. "Allow me to remind you of rule number 7, he said, his voice dripping with condescending pity. "Appeals may only be filed in the form of a public sculpture, to be erected overnight by the appealing party, right here, on this very stage." He gestured with a grand sweep of his arm to the vast, empty space beside him. "The materials, should you choose to accept this artistic challenge, are located backstage. I believe we have some discarded Snolly glue, a few spare girders from the set's demolition, and a delightful collection of hardened foodstuffs from last week's feast. The court will issue its ruling by morning. Either we sanction your sculpture's demolition, which would mean the execution proceeds, or we declare it a protected landmark, and you will be free to go. A gurney, complete with restraints, and a menacingly complex array of gleaming instruments, was wheeled onto the stage. A technician in a crisp white coat began polishing a particularly large, hook-shaped blade. The message was clear. You had the night, a single night, to build a sculpture, to build a life out of Snolly group and scrap metal, or die trying. "Guards," Goodchild commanded, "escort the artists to their studio. Let us give them the space they need to create." The two Snolly masked figures moved toward you. They were no longer just stagey hands. They were your wardens and your potential patrons. They unlocked your restraints from the chair and, with a surprisingly gentle touch, guided you toward the wings. As you were led off stage, you passed Prosecutor Avarice. She was still frozen at her lectern, her face a canvas of professional humiliation. She didn't look at you, but you could feel the sheer force of her thwarted ambition radiating from her like a furnace. Backstage was a nightmare of chaotic construction. The ground was sticky-ous and viscous, brown substance, Snolly gloop that smelled faintly of chemicals and old meat, piles of metal beams, tangled wires, and unidentifiable chunks of something grey and solid were strewn about. A single, naked bulb hung from the ceiling, casting long, dancing shadows. The guards left you here, locking a heavy steel gate behind them. You are alone with your tools, your pain, and the impossible, absurd task ahead of you. And somewhere in the vast, darkened spaces of the arena, a small, anxious badger was probably trying to tunnel its way to freedom. Tidal. The steel gate clanged shut, the sound echoing like a death sentence. You were alone in the cavernous, messy belly of the stage. Your tongue throbbed with every beat of your heart, a metronome counting down your remaining hours. A single bare bulb cast a jaundiced glow on the art supplies. You nudged a pile of hardened, unidentifiable foodstuffs with your foot. It was petrified, like cement. First, you needed a plan, a concept. What does justice look like when it's a grotesque performance? What is freedom in a nation run by a man who thinks branding is a recalibration? You couldn't build something beautiful. That would be dismissed as sentimental. You couldn't build something defiant. That would be seen as an act of terror. You couldn't build something abstract. They'd call it incoherent and demolish it. You had to build something so convoluted, so bafflingly layered with pregnant official iconography that they couldn't tear it down without demolishing a part of themselves. An aesthetic Trojan horse. You began with the girders, dragging them into the center of the space. They were heavy, the rough metal scraping against the concrete floor. You approach the badger and offer years of its favorite food in exchange for the construction of a dam that would be of great utility to all. But it has to be on the stage. Is the badger up to the task? The badger, who had somehow found its way backstage and was now industriously trying to bury a stray bolt in the sticky floor, simply looked up at you. It wiggled its nose, shuddered, and went back to its task. There was no malice in its eyes, only a pure animal focus. You were an obstacle, a feature of the landscape. Your offer of food was meaningless. Its world was the immediate, the tactile, the cold steel of the bolt, the yielding gloop of the floor. This was the only true innocence left in Bregna, an animal that didn't know it was on trial. With a side that sent fresh lances of pain through your seared tongue, you gave up on conscription. It was all you. Ours bled into one another. You worked by touch and feel as much as by sight. You used the fallen length of chain to hoist one girder into a vertical position, propping it with another. It became a spine. You laid two more across the top, a rudimentary set of shoulders. You were building a figure, a mockery of a monument. You gathered handfuls of the Snolly gloop, its tacky warmth coating your arms, and began to slap it onto the metal skeleton. It was foul-smelling work, the gloop clinging to you like a second skin. In the darkest hours of the night, when exhaustion was a physical presence, a new sound joined the echoes of your labors, a soft scratching from the steel gate. You turned. Prosecutor Avarice stood there, her face illuminated by the bar of light from under the door. She had changed out of her uniform into a simple, grey jumpsuit, the kind given to state functionaries on a low rung. Her hair, once so severely pulled back, now fell loose around her shoulders. She didn't speak. She just held up her hands. In one, a tool, a heavy-duty rivet gun. In the other, a blueprint, a schematic, hastily sketched, showing a way to reinforce your flimsy structure to give it the illusion of permanence and engineering. Her face was unreadable. Was this mercy, spite against good child for her humiliation? Or was she simply a creature of efficiency, unable to stand the sight of a poorly constructed execution device? You took the tools and the schematic. You nodded. She nodded back. A single, sharp movement. Then she turned and was gone, her footsteps retreating into the silence. You worked faster now. With the rivet gun, you secured the joints, the sharp crack ping of each rivet echoing like a small victory. You began to apply the petrified foodstuffs, cementing them into place with more glue. You carved into a hardened wedge of what might have once been cake, shivving it with a scrap of metal into a stark, angular face. You were creating an effigy, a statue of Snolly, but not the smiling, benevolent Snolly from the bags. You were making the original the source. You made its face a void, a hollow cavity. Where its heart should be, you placed the confession, the hotel stationery tucked into a cage of wires. In one stiff, glue-covered hand, you placed the blood-stained knife. And in the other, you held the autumn leaf, its delicate veins a stark contrast to the brutalist form around it. You finished just as the first, Grey hint of dawn seeped through the high windows. You had built it, a towering, monstrous thing that was both a tribute and an indictment. It was a public sculpture. It was the entire case. You stood back, covered in grime and gloop, your body screaming in protest. The steel gate screeched open. Trevor Goodchild walked in, alone. He wasn't smiling. He circled your creation slowly, his boots making soft sounds in the grime. He didn't look at you. He looked only at the sculpture. He ran a gloved finger along a riveted seam. He peered into the hollow cavity of the face. He read the label on the petrified cake block you'd used for a foot. Death by Chocolate Mousse Season 7 Snolly Banquet. He stopped in front of it, between the knife and the leaf. For a long moment, the silence was absolute. A remarkable piece, he finally said, his voice quiet, almost reverent, deeply problematic, aesthetically challenging. He turned to you. The morning light caught the exhaustion in his eyes. You have used the tools of the state to mock the state. You have used the memory of our fallen comrade to question the very foundations of our justice. You have created a monument to ambiguity. He paused. The law states the court must either sanction its demolition or declare it a protected landmark. He looked back at the towering, obscene statue of Snolly, the guilty knife and the innocent leaf, the confession in the empty chest. Citizens of Bregna, Goodchild's voice boomed, amplified to the now empty arena. He had activated the communicator. A ruling has been made. As dawn breaks on this most solemn of days, the court finds itself moved, touched by the raw, unfiltered expression of grief and confusion presented to us. The artist has captured the very essence of our struggle, the pain of a nation wrestling with the loss of Snolly and the difficult, often paradoxical path to justice. A murmur began in the arena. The early shift cleaning crew and news crews stopping to listen. Therefore, Goodchild proclaimed, his arms open wide as if to embrace the sky, in the interest of preserving this pivotal work for future generations, for it to serve as a touchstone for our civic discourse. The sculpture is hereby declared the protected landmark. The accused is free to go. The murmur grew into a smattering of confused applause. Goodchild turned to you. The performance was over. The tyrant was back. He walked until he was inches from your face. He leaned in close, his voice a private, venomous whisper that did not carry. This isn't a victory, he breathed. It's a sentence. I'm not putting you in a cell. I'm putting you in your own museum. You will live with this. You are now the curator of confusion, the caretaker of the absurd. Every day you will come here. You will clean this monument. You will explain its profound meaning to tour groups of school children and dignitaries. You will embody the very chaos you try to weaponize. You're free, but you will live in a cage of your own making. Welcome to your life. He straightened up, the puppet mask snapping back into place. He gave you a thin, razor-sharp smile and strode away, leaving you alone with your masterpiece and your new impossible job. Title: The Job was a form of psychological warfare played out in slow motion. You were given a small, windowless room backstage, once a storage closet for propaganda posters. You were given a uniform, a drab gray coverall, and a mop. And you were given a schedule. The first tour group arrived 2 days after your acquittal. A class of children, all no older than 8, with a teacher, a woman whose smile was as polished and brittle as glass. They stood before your sculpture, their faces turned upward. And this, the teacher announced in a bright, rehearsed voice, is the monument to ambiguity erected by the anonymous hero, the final verdict. Can anyone tell me why the great Snolly has no face?
Cognition. I could really good ending, but
Lil Darla raises a hand. To escape face recognition scans, he sighted his face off. She said, her voice high with certainty. A very literal interpretation. Lil Darla, the teacher said, her smile never wavering. The hero sculpted the face as a void to represent the emptiness we all felt when Snolly was redistributed. The artist wants us to fill that emptiness with our own feelings. You, standing to the side with your mop, were to be the living exhibit. The curator. Good child's final. Cruel joke. The teacher turned to you. Curator, would you please elaborate on the significance of the leaf in the statue's hand? Why not a flag or symbol of our strength? Your tongue, still a scarred, sensitive mess of tissue, made forming words a clumsy, painful process. You looked from the delicate, desiccated leaf to the eager, waiting faces of the children. You thought of Mr. Goodlad, dragged away for tasting fear in the air. The leaf you managed, the words thick and slurred, is to remind us that even in the harshest system, even in the steel and the glue, something can still fall and be beautiful and mean nothing. There was a moment of silence. The teacher's smile flickered, almost imperceptibly.
wow.
Fascinating, she said, recovering instantly. The artist's command of negative meaning is truly profound. Now, children single file to the reconciliation cafeteria for our nutrient paste. They marched away, leaving you with the statue and the echo of your own miserable explanation. This was your life now, polishing the rivets, scrubbing the stains, dredging the half-truths from the depths of your pain. One evening, weeks later, as you were hosing down the dry poop from the statue's base, you heard a soft cough. Prosecutor Alvarez stood there, again in her plain gray jumpsuit. She looked different without the starched uniform. Softer, but also more dangerous, like a weapon that had been removed from its display case. A curious statement, she said, her gaze fixed on the spot you were cleaning. That the leaf can mean nothing. What would you have me say? You asked. That it's a symbol of our state's enduring connection to the seasons? That it represents hope? No, she said quietly. I would have you say nothing at all. That's the point. She stepped closer, glancing around the empty auditorium. Good child believes he has broken you, trapped you. He thinks this is your prison. He's wrong.
Okay, that's it for now. Alright, the episode was just to showcase the song. No. Oh, and all this? Oh, all this, hold on, wait. All this came from a single piece of, thing I made for AI Jukebox back in the OpenAI early days. Way back when. Back when. Mhm. Hold on, hold on. Where is it? So I uploaded an audio file. Should be right here. This is the original. Shit. This is where the AI takes over. You know how long it take to make that? You had to have it go through from layer 0 to layer 1 and be very. And layer 1 to layer 2, denoising, I guess. Yeah, you look at these things. I have a few of these. I have a few of these little fragments. I'm not trained in music at all, but I can support that junkie tune. And I have an rhythm in my text. What the fuck am I talking about? I should go to bed. I'll go to bed. We'll just cut off when this file ends.